Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick is killing it at the box office, expected to pass the $200 million mark today if it hasn't yet already.
Now, the movie's success caught the attention of conservative commentators who see the box office blowout as doom and gloom for Democrats come November. Ryan, I don't know about that. I mean,
where's the demand for these takes?
I don't know. It's Twitter?
I guess.
I guess Twitter. But there's something really interesting going on with this movie. First of all, this must have been 2.5 years ago. I reported on the Pentagon's resources going into making this movie, which at the time had removed the Taiwanese flag from the back of the bomber jacket. So essentially, the American propaganda was also serving as Chinese propaganda. But what ended up happening in the American cut of the film, at least, is that it was sort of restored on the back of the bomber jacket.
The Taiwanese flag?
Yeah, and
on
so
American bombers?
Well, so it's in the original Top Gun, and it celebrates like a mission, and so there's sort of this flip in Hollywood, and people said that would never happen. Hollywood is way too dependent on China, but because of the way the pandemic shifted movies, because China is now making so many of its own movies, they're letting fewer and fewer movies in. I mean, Marvel's Eternals is a great example. I mean, so Hollywood is having these budgets where they're counting on the film getting into Chinese theaters, and it's not. And this is it feels like the vibe shift has hit Hollywood almost. The Navy is recruiting outside showings of Top Gun. And there's this entire additional story about the fact that we thought movie theaters were dead, and they're never going to be the same. There's no question about it, and they probably haven't been the same since VCR. But this is a huge hit. I mean, this is a record-breaking movie. Tom Cruise is, who I feel like we don't talk enough about his position in the Church of Scientology. But Tom Cruise feels like the last great movie star to some people. I don't know. What do you make of all this?
Like the last action star. Yeah, he's like, 60 years old and just still killing it.
Looking 30.
And meanwhile, isn't the U.S., they're announcing they're doing the biggest war game exercise in the Pacific Ocean practically ever. They're warning China that they're going to do that. So there's going to be some Mavericks flying around. So I just this week rewatched the original Top Gun so that I could prepare to see it. I haven't yet gotten to Top Gun Maverick. This idea from conservatives that it suggests, I think there's going to be a red wave anyway.
Yeah.
But that this has anything to do with it, I think is way off. I think tons of liberals understand that it was Cold War propaganda. Now it's whatever war we're in propaganda, but it's bubblegum as well. It's just a fun movie to watch. And you know what? If we're going to spend $700 to $900 billion a year on the Pentagon of public money, then at least we get a decent movie out of it. Fine, thank you. At least we get something for this other than just death and destruction around the planet.
So the way it works is that they film training exercises, and it's supposed to be sort of symbiotic. But the point about, so I actually think the argument is that because even liberals appreciate just good old-fashioned American fun,
the movie, cowboy western,
right? And there's no sort of political correctness injected into the movie. It is just Hollywood. It is just them doing their thing. What they're better than any other industry in the world, any other entertainment industry in the world at doing. That's it. It's just your summer action flick, not injected overly with politics, political correctness. And so I think that's the argument. Is actually that even people on the left are patriotic and sort of sick of PC culture, and because they're flocking to see this movie, then Democrats who are coming across as humorless and unpatriotic are in added trouble at the polls in November. I would probably posit that gas prices are going to have more to do with the red wave than anything that you can sort of glean from this. But I do kind of think there's a point to the fact that Democrats have alienated a lot of liberals on culture issues.
Yeah, but I don't think it plays out in this.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. When did Top Gun come out? 86?
Yeah, late 80s, late 80s.
86 was a pretty good year for Democrats in the midterms. So
well, it was a very different Democratic Party.
It was, yeah.
Especially in terms of.
But Reagan was pure Top Gun, rah rah.
He should have been in Top Gun.
Yeah, I mean, he basically was. Like it was, shooting down MiGs, and it's fun to see. And your point about China is interesting. So their kind of version of this is, I think it's called what, Wolf Warrior. The series of it. They're like
the villain is Americans.
The villain is Americans, and they're basically Blackwater mercenaries. And so they frame the American ethos as pure individualism, mercenary nature. That, like at the end of the one movie, the Americans, or I guess he was Australian, but he's basically a stand-in for American or whatever. Maybe he was American. He's like, I fight for money, you fight for your country. That's what's wrong with you. And the Wolf Warrior guy is a team player. Like he's got the Rambo and Maverick bravery, but he is ultimately a team player. He's there for China. He's there for the country. He's there for his comrades. Whereas Maverick is literally a maverick.
It's kind of in the name.
Yeah, he's a rebel without a cause.
But it is still about the kind of collective, the military, the team.
It's his maverickness, because it's allowed by the institution, by the Navy, to flourish, becomes the thing that then saves the rest of the team. So it's still like rah-rah America and everybody rallying behind the flag, but it's because they like elevated this individual and allowed his freak flag, Maverick flag, to fly, that his raw skill was able to then save Iceman, the rule-following guy who's good but really needs a Maverick to get him over the top. And so you see kind of the ethos of both countries poured into the propaganda of these films, and that's what we do. And you know what? I've seen some of Wolf Warrior. It looks fun, and Top Gun looks fun. Like if propaganda is done right, it's entertaining. Like it's the like boring kitschy propaganda that falls flat. It's not necessarily about the message. It's more about how good it is.
Does Wolf Warrior have a volleyball scene?
Probably. Yeah, it probably does, actually.
Because Top Gun is it's not really
there's a lot of
action
homage.
movie, it's a sports movie.
There's a lot of homage in some of these Chinese films, and they very much, like the iconic volleyball scene. I don't know if it plays into Wolf Warrior. Maybe people can answer that one in the comments.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't shock me if they threw a little tiny shout out to it by playing a little beach volleyball.
Well, and listen, this is where the team element comes in, Ryan, because you have to be a part of the collective and the team to succeed in volleyball.
Well, yeah, but the most collective that they'll allow is 2-on-2.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I actually think you just touched on something really interesting, is that the concept of patriotism and sort of Maverick as a servant of his country and of his team.
But he does it his own way.
Right, but he does it his own way is a really interesting one. And I do think it's also interesting, the sort of sense or the pride in your country. It felt so different for so many people in the 80s than it does now. But I do sort of think in the 30,000 foot sense, there's an argument to be made that people are not turned off by patriotism and like raw pro-American propaganda, because this movie is an absolute blockbuster blowout.
Right. And also, before I undersell Wolf Warrior, like that movie, the first scene starts, he's a sniper in this scene, and he's being ordered by his commander not to take this shot because it's dangerous, and don't take the shot, and he's lining up. It's a wild scene. It's like, and you see China getting really good at movie production, because what he does, there's a hostage taker behind a cement wall.
Yeah.
And Wolf Warrior shoots the wall twice, and while he's being told, stop shooting the wall, stop shooting, and each time he penetrates deeper into the wall with the bullet, and then when the third one shoots through the wall, and just cinematically, you're like, well, that's pretty wild.
They learned from the best.
And he hits the hostage taker, and then gets called into the commander. How dare you? So there is some you do need that maverickness in your protagonist in order to even capture the imagination of Chinese viewers.
Right.
And so but then they funnel that into a different version of patriotism through their propaganda than ours.
Yeah, I mean, truly, and if you talk to people in Hollywood, they will tell you they learned from the best. They learned from us, and now they're doing it themselves. And
you can find that opening scene on YouTube. it's something else.
Now we know what Ryan does
Yeah, you
with his free time.
You don't even need subtitles. Like, it's clear what's going on.
Well, we'll be back with more Rising after this.